MeMonster.
Chapter 281. Uh, uh, Ikar's mouth opened. An incomprehensible groan escaped her lips, a sound more fitting for an object than a person. There was no reason or emotion in the girl standing before me. When Ikar's lifespan ends, the harvesters will arrive in earnest. This world will collapse in an instant. Field missions, those petty struggles, mean nothing. Even if you turn the world back thousands, millions of times, the result will not change. Do you understand, Priya? The prince looked at Priya. His golden eyes were deeply sunken. We will all die. Even if we gather strength in Taunia, collect all kinds of mystical treasures, and perform countless miracles, we cannot win. This mission was rigged from the start. Priya's gaze wavered. Her parted lips let out only a faint sigh. If ending it all by dying was an option, it would be a relief. Tel is insane. She will cling to maintaining Mobius with all her heart and soul until the very moment everything vanishes. Do you know what that means? Anger flashed in the prince's eyes. It means that even death will not be the end. We will be endlessly revived in this world, endlessly spinning on a wheel, dying and dying again, just as I once did. That's impossible. You are no different, Han. Why do you think you're here when you were supposed to be on Earth? Frios turned to me. I closed my eyes. The events of my promotion to rank 2 flashed through my mind. Tel, dressed in a suit, speaking with a relaxed voice. The goal of the game is to save the world. It wasn't a lie, but it was impossible from the start, because the universe was already broken. I had learned the truth of the 7-Star Project from Lantia and Schuttenberg. The 7-Star Project. This game had 4 transcendent heroes, a fusion between the higher dimensional beings called Masters and the lower dimensional heroes to create an exceptionally superior entity. The fusion of Master and Hero, that was the core of the 7-Star promotion. Frios spoke no more. He simply watched me with a gentle smile. Was that supposed to be a hint? I crossed my arms and decided to think from the beginning. Why had I, a gamer on Earth, fallen into this world? To clear the tower? Nonsense. If left alone, Niflheim could have cleared the 90th floor. My raid team had been progressing smoothly up to the 87th floor. Well, it was an unfinished game. Impossible to clear anyway. The fusion of Master and Hero. During the fusion process, the hero gains the power to transcend their limits. In other words, they become another god, gaining the ability to surpass the rules. That was how the 4 7 stars were created. But from the developer's perspective, this is insane. Elcid had proven that perfectly. Elcid, the #1 ranker, rampaged across the entire server, destroying countless accounts and breaking the server's boundaries. In the end, Mobius had to launch an emergency event to eliminate him. The 7-Star fusion creates an uncontrollable catastrophe. Moreover, if the news about players becoming vegetative on Earth leaked to the media, Pick Me Up would not escape ruin. It was a considerable risk. And yet, if they were willing to take such risks and draw upon extra-dimensional powers... Oh! I turned to the side. Ikar was looking at me with transparent eyes. I see. I finally understood. The prince's smile deepened. A server replacement, huh? If the server computer's lifespan had run out, then it would need to be replaced with a better one. In that case, I must be one of the candidates. There were still a few unanswered questions, but I could roughly deduce Tell's goal. She planned to fuse me and Ceres to create a 7-star to use as fuel for the next server. I smirked. It seems like everyone else failed except me. That's correct. Even Elcid's vessel shattered while climbing the 90th floor. If he had been perfect as a 7-star, he would have broken through the world raid head-on. There wouldn't have been a need to entrust me with the task. I sighed. Of course, I couldn't guarantee this was 100% accurate, but my instincts told me it was true. If my guess was correct, I could understand why Ceres had been so furious with me. If I had become a 7-star unknowingly and been dragged to Server 1, a living biological battery, burning away my life force to keep this crazy world alive for a little while longer. I understand. After being dragged here, consuming offerings in the form of monsters, growing stronger, becoming complete as a 7-star, and under the belief of saving the world, being sent to Server 1. Those executives didn't want to sacrifice themselves, but they still wanted the game to keep running, so they made a substitute god. They're complete bastards. Betrayal upon betrayal upon betrayal. Alpha Zero and Seigel never told me these conditions. They only repeated that they were offering me a choice. Is this what you call a choice? A hollow laugh escaped me. They had withheld all unfavorable information and deceived me with the pretense of a fair contract. Boom! The ground shook violently. When I turned around, a circular flame was blazing in the distance. From within the fire, a brilliant light shone. Han Israt! A familiar voice echoed. An intelligent, feminine voice. It was Seigel, Alpha Zero's lieutenant. Do not be deceived by his words. You have a choice. If you wish to return to Earth, we will do our utmost to help you. Help? I muttered. How will you help? The moment I clear the 90th floor, will I be sent straight back? There is an order to things. And that order is? That is still... You can't tell me. Ridiculous. You have a choice? If you're going to offer a choice, tell me everything. You know what we call people like you on Earth? Scammers. I had slightly trusted them, that they truly wanted to end this game, that they were different from Tell. In the end, they were all in on it. Fool me once, I'm a victim. Fool me twice, I'm an idiot. A sigh deeply. We'll continue this conversation later. First, we must handle the intruders. Boom! A figure leapt out of the flaming gate. At that moment, our business here is finished. The prince swung his sword sideways. The golden light from the blade filled the surroundings. This is an unrecognized dimension. Urgent managerial required. Please contact an administrator. The sensation of floating, the feeling of leaping between dimensions. When the light faded completely, I slowly opened my eyes. Whoosh. The sound of grass swaying in the wind. In front of me stretched an endless field of wheat. We've finally arrived, the prince spoke. Prio looked around the wheat field with vacant eyes. Where is this? Where do you think? The prince smiled softly. This is the last remaining inch of land. An inch of land? The prince turned his back, then began walking along a narrow path cutting through the wheat field. Han.
Priya met my eyes. I gave her a small nod. With a resolute expression, she followed the prince. I folded my arms and walked behind them. Before long, a wooden house appeared amidst the wheat field. It was like a painting, a tranquil scene. Under the orange sunset, the wheat swayed in the wind around the small house. I leaned against the massive tree, maintaining some distance from the two. In this place, I've gathered all the interference force I've collected. I've set up a barrier. It should last at least 100 years. The prince brushed his hand against one of the wooden pillars of the house, then turned back to Priya. You don't need to fight anymore. Taunia, the empire, the people, the monsters, the fragments. You don't need to care about any of them. Everything you want is here. Well, that's probably true. If the world is already doomed, what's the point in fighting? Clink! The prince set his sword down on the wooden floor. I realized it too late. I thought I was fighting for a great cause, for the people of Taunia, for the honor of the empire. But in that foolish delusion, I lived through 17 lives. I acted like the perfect prince, didn't I? His gaze filled with regret. I was wrong, Priya. Taunia can fall. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. From the beginning, the only thing I wanted to protect was one thing. What is it? Priasis au Ragnar. The prince met Priya's eyes. Live a normal life here. Die a normal death. Your Highness. Just hearing you call me that pains me. Priya closed her eyes. You showed me this barrier. Was it to persuade me? I wanted to show you that this world is not worth sacrificing your life to protect. What am I supposed to do here? Anything, whatever your heart desires. What I want isn't here. Priya, didn't you see it clearly? I didn't see anything. Priya opened her eyes. Send me back. There are people waiting for me. They're just illusions. They are not illusions. They're tools of the goddess. I don't care. The prince furrowed his brows. That situation is manipulated. You're being used. I am prepared for that. It's not a matter of preparation, Priya. The prince grabbed Priya by the shoulders. Taunia cannot be saved. You will die. That mercenary king, your army, the citizens, they will all be devoured and disappear. Knowing that, can you still say those things? Brother, Priya sighed deeply, then looked up at the prince. I know you care for me, but isn't this running away? This is not running away. If destruction is inevitable, then I will proudly fight and die. I don't want to see you like this, brother. You were always my hero, never giving up, always showing me the way forward. And now you're telling me to abandon everyone and run away? Can't you understand? Even if you fight and die, I'll fight again. Priya, the prince's voice trembled. Send me back to the battlefield. You always told me to stand with pride, no matter the circumstances. Priya took a step back. The fight isn't over yet. If I don't return, the invaders will sweep through Taunia. We don't have time for this. Send me back now. If you want to stop me, you'll have to kill me. Priya turned her back on the prince and walked toward me. Han, do you know where the exit is? Well, I glanced around. I had been observing the surroundings since we arrived, but I hadn't seen anything that resembled an exit. We'll have to look for it. Give me a moment. Priya stepped into the wheat field. I leaned back against the tree, watching her fade into the golden sea of grain. Eventually, she disappeared from sight. The prince stood still, like a ghost. I spoke up. If you're out of options, you could tie her up. At least she wouldn't be able to escape. It's meaningless. Why is it meaningless? She won't listen to you. Suddenly, the prince staggered, coughing up a handful of blood. The blood that splattered onto the ground was dark and viscous. "I've overused my strength." The prince let out a bitter laugh.
Chapter 282. I frowned. The prince's pale face resembled that of a corpse. Dark veins ran down from his lips. "Power comes with a price," the prince muttered as he wiped his mouth. I immediately understood what he meant. It was similar to what happened with El Cid. He too had overused power beyond his limits, and in the end he self-destructed. "How much time do you have left?" The prince didn't answer. Was it far shorter than I had expected? The prince extended his right hand to the side. His fingertips wavered faintly before returning to their original state. "I broke through dozens of layers of dimensional barriers. My body couldn't endure the backlash. But I have no regrets, because I was able to show you the truth." Priya said she wouldn't stay here. The prince smiled. "A younger sister never listens to her older brother, does she?" I couldn't understand. The young man in front of me had fought for hundreds of years. He had died and killed countless times in battlefields I couldn't even imagine, all to gain just a handspan of land. And yet he gave up his purpose just because his younger sisters said no? If it were me, I would have forced her, imprisoned her, or done whatever it took to achieve my goal. "You're foolish." The prince narrowed his eyes. "That's the difference between you and me." "The difference?" "That child knew her fate, and she chose that fate with her own hands. Then I must bless that path. That is what family is." Fate. I let out a hollow laugh. If Frios's words were true, Priya would be thrown into a meaningless fight and die a meaningless death. The infinite fragments wriggling at the boundary, what we fought was not even 1/1,000,000th of them. In the end, I recalled the crimson plains of Dorado. El Cid had united all the forces of the Golden Incense, but still failed to stop the invasion. Taunia would meet the same end. Neither missions, nor the goddess's blessing, nor heroes, nor NPCs mattered. Neither Dorado, nor Taunia, nor any other dimension existing in Mobius could ever complete the scenario of world regeneration. That possibility was impossible from the beginning. Tel was merely prolonging the end of the universe by 1 year, 1 month, 1 minute, or 1 second more. This is a fatal error. No, it was beyond an error. What can we even do? If there's no solution, it's not an error. What would change if I went to Server 1? Even if I fully awakened the power of the 7 stars and took Ikar's place as they intended, it would only delay time slightly. The ending wouldn't change. I can't breathe. Click. I gripped the scabbard tightly. Anyway, I shook off my thoughts. For now, I had to focus on the situation in front of me. Frios had broken through Server 1's wall during a live broadcast with hundreds of thousands of viewers watching and revealed critical secrets to me and Priya, key figures in the scenario. From the company's perspective, this was unforgivable. Are you going back? What's the point of staying here? If you go back, you'll die. If I stay here, it's the same. I opened my mouth. I don't know how much you thought, but I think ending it like this is foolish. This isn't the end. The prince coughed again. Thick tar-like blood splattered out. When he wiped his mouth with his arm, his entire right sleeve turned black. If it cannot end here, then let it begin here. Han Israt. The prince looked at me with blurry eyes. "We will meet again on the golden throne." "What are you talking about?" "You are not ready yet." The prince smirked faintly and turned his head. Following his gaze, I saw Priya walking out from the end of the wheat field. "Where is the exit?" Priya spoke in an emotionless voice. The prince opened his mouth. "You don't need to search. You'll be sent back soon. Before that, let me ask one last time, Priya sees.
Do you truly wish to return? There is no hope or future there. You will be buried in endless battles and die in the ruins." Priya closed her eyes as if digesting the prince's words. After a while, she opened them again. "I have sworn, a vow, to protect Taunia until that child returns. There is no time to linger here. Please send me back to Taunia, brother. If that is your will, then I will open the path." Shink! The prince raised his sword. "Once you return, there will be no turning back. Do you understand?" "I understand. Are you prepared?" "I am prepared." "You are truly stubborn." The prince looked at Priya with caring eyes, and then he smiled brightly. "I have always loved you, Priya." The prince lowered his sword. A radiant light burst from the blade, engulfing the wheat field. Amid the light, a trembling voice echoed, "Brother, You don't need to say it. To remain here, I know what you carry, because I once carried it too. Walk your path." Light engulfed everything. "Master Anything, welcome to Pick Me Up." A cheerful sound effect played as the login screen appeared. Loading complete. Touch Select. Anything re-entered the main screen after loading in an instant. A holographic message in her interface upon re-entry, reconnecting to the server. "We apologize for the inconvenience." Time which had stopped began to move again. The fragments falling from the sky, the monsters clashing with heroes and weapons, the burning cities and the crumbling buildings regained their colors. "Opa, what just happened?" "Look ahead, it's not over." Jenna, with a puzzled expression, turned her head. Not far away, the prince stood with his sword lowered, wearing a relaxed smile. At the same time, the goddess's punishment strikes Frios El Ragnar. Crack! Out of nowhere, 5 blades shot out from the void and pierced the prince. At the same time, the goddess's punishment strikes Frios El Ragnar. Crack! Out of nowhere, 5 blades shot out from the void and pierced the prince. What is that? Crunch! The glowing blades lifted into the air. The prince's body was suspended, blood scattering in the wind. What's with those swords? Why did it suddenly... The company seemed furious. No object had been provided, no buffs were given. A direct attack and restraint. They didn't care about missions anymore. They just wanted him dead. The prince was right. Seeing them resort to this, it seemed he had struck a nerve. The chat on the broadcast screen updated rapidly. But I didn't need to read it. Most of it would be complaints about the server errors and chaotic mission development. "Han," Roderick's voice echoed in my head. "I don't think I can hold on much longer." I looked to the side. In the distance, monsters were pouring into the hero's stronghold in the midst of the burning avenue. 7,322 level 53 corrupted goblins. The monsters had overrun the entire capital. Among them were figures resembling heroes, their features twisted by corruption. The balance is broken. On the right side of my vision, messages about heroes being injured or dying flooded in. I touched my ear. "Is Priya here?" "She is. Use spatial magic to send her here." Before Roderick could finish his words, space distorted and Priya stepped out. She looked at the suspended prince with a hardened expression. "Brother." Blood fell from the prince's feet, pooling on the cracked ground below. "This situation, how can this happen in the middle of battle?" "Don't concern yourself with it. We have our task." I spun Bifrost once. Crackle. Crimson lightning coursed along the blade, coiling like a snake ready to strike. "Kill me, and take my heart. Within it lies what you seek. Are you hesitating now?" "That's..." "Steady your aim. It won't be easy." A guttural roar echoed from above. I looked up. From the massive rift in the sky, something colossal began to descend. Warning.
crystal of despair is beginning to descend. The second crystal had appeared, but the situation was far worse than during the first. 1,053 level 108 shards of despair. Hundreds of glittering crystalline shards orbited the rift like satellites waiting. If I tried to fly toward the sky with Priya, they would surely intercept me. Han, Halcyon voice came through my earpiece. What did you see? Everything. I answered briefly and then looked at both the prince and Priya. We're out of time. This world is going to collapse soon. Brother. Who said you could call me brother? I am Frios Al Ragnar, heir of the ancient imperial throne. Priya flinched slightly at his sharp words. She turned to me, her eyes resolute, and gave a firm nod. I stepped forward. Jenna, Velkist. I drew Bifrost back, preparing to strike. Crackle. The lightning surged, condensed, and then turned into a deep black glow, coiling tightly around the blade. We need to finish this in one strike. Get ready. Wait, just a moment ago you said, I said get ready. All right. Jenna raised her bow. Click. The wings of her bow extended, locking into place. A gleaming silver arrow was loaded onto the bowstring. Can he really be killed? Velkist pointed his sword at the prince. Clang. The blade let out a sharp metallic hum as energy began vibrating through it. Compression. 10 million-fold. The light on Velkist's blade intensified, its edge vibrating so fast it appeared blurred. Priya. Yes. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? I did. Then resist. Resist and resist again. If you fall, stand back up. If you break, mend yourself. Whatever blocks your path, crush it and move forward. That is our golden bloodline. Crack. The blades piercing the prince dug in deeper. Prove to me that I was wrong. A thunderous sound burst from above. Something vast was plummeting through the rift. I steadied my grip on Bifrost. I'm sorry. Those words are wrong, Priya. The prince smiled faintly. Charging, complete. I swung my sword. The black glow burst forth like a tidal wave of pure void. Fire! Thud. A beam of brilliant silver light shot from Jenna's bow, piercing the air. It was a sniper arrow, modeled after Brynhildr. At the same time, Velkist swung his blade, unleashing a white shockwave. The three attacks converged, becoming a single catastrophic force engulfing the prince entirely. There was no explosion, no sound. Only one thing remained, the overwhelming golden radiance emanating from the point of impact. Priya, I whispered to her. She flinched as if shaken from a trance and stepped forward into the blinding light. And then, Through the brilliant glow, a figure emerged, holding a sword aloft. Resist. The scattered waves of light began to converge into a singular beam, rising upward. Mission updated. Mission type, Conquest. Objective, Transcend Fate.
Chapter 283. Transcend Fate. I let out a bitter laugh. I had seen someone before who carried a similar title, but still, it wasn't time for her to fall just yet. Special NPC Prius Al Ragnar awakens the golden bloodline. The multi-dimensional sword, Ruslada, is complete. The light bursting from the prince's corpse coalesced into the form of a sword in Priya's hand. Compared to the irregular, curved, multi-dimensional sword Priya had been using before, this one appeared far more stable. Golden afterimages danced at the tips of her silver hair. Is it over? Jenna blinked. I turned my head and replied, no. 1,037 level 108 shards of despair. Grumble, grumble. The floating shards near the hole plummeted simultaneously with an ominous groan. Their target, Priya,
who stood holding her sword aloft. Light swirled like a vortex at the tip of her blade. Charge rate, 1%. Velkist gripped his sword scabbard and grinned. Looks like there's one last thing left to do. I nodded. Well, the prince had shown an unexpected final act, but a mission is a mission. It wouldn't make sense if there was no final phase. We must buy time until the charge is complete. I looked upward. Thousands of shards were raining down toward us. The core of the shards of despair resembled massive, transparent crystals, each about 3 meters in size. At the center of each glass-like shard, flashes of light began to explode outward. Zing! A dense heat ray fired toward Priya. Expand. The blade of Bifrost extended outward and unfolded like a whip. I swung the transformed blade wide, deflecting the heat ray with its tip. I'll have to go one more round. Crackle. Red lightning began to surge around my entire body. Senior! Why don't you take a break this time? Velkist spoke again. I don't know what you've been through, but it seems like you had your fun while we were away. At least this time, give us a chance. It's hardly worth it if we can't even properly use the power we've built up. I didn't think this was something to share. Aren't you tired? Velkist stepped forward. Tired? Ever since the fight with the prince began, I had maintained my demonic transformation state. Demonic transformation is an incredibly taxing skill. Even after leaving the mission, I didn't know what might happen, so I never released it. He's not wrong. I let out a small laugh. I had indeed been exerting myself for a long time. Do as you like. I sat on the remains of a broken pillar. With a snap of my fingers, the black dragon's power that had been surging through my body faded. I turned my eyes toward Priya. She was in a trance-like state. With blank eyes, she held her sword high. The golden radiance around her grew ever more vivid. Has she lost her reason? I averted my gaze from her. Dozens of meters above, hundreds of crystals simultaneously prepared to unleash their beams. I sighed. Even though the prince was dead, the mission wasn't over. Well, no point in worrying about it now. Zing! Dozens of beams fired simultaneously. 6-star Velkist enters demonic transformation. A semicircular sword light pierced through the sky. The blade light didn't just extinguish the beams, it shattered dozens of floating crystals simultaneously. It was as if a white line had been drawn across the sky. Now that's satisfying. Velkist stepped forward. His white hair glimmered under the pale light and 2 horns jutted out from his head. Velkist had fully embraced the power of the white dragon, Asinus, reaching the same level as me. Helkion had claimed this state was far more unstable and dangerous, but Velkist had no trouble wielding the white dragon's power. If not for those annoying instructions to hold back my power, I could have reduced that prince or whatever he was to dust. Velkist let his sword drop to his side. The air around the blade shimmered with distortion. I chuckled lightly. That's why we told you to conserve your strength. The main force was struggling just to fend off the monster's attacks. That meant the intruder had to be defeated with our combined strength. No, not even 3 of us. Just 1. I smiled bitterly. Velkist leaped dozens of meters into the air. He landed on top of a crystal and drove his blade into its core. Before it could explode, he leapt again to the next crystal. His movements were precise and calculated. While it might sound slow when described, witnessing it was a different story. The power of the White Dragon bloodline allowed him to accelerate time itself. To an ordinary person, it would look like white afterimages were flashing across the sky as the crystals shattered on their own. Boom, 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 boom. Dozens of crystals disintegrated simultaneously. Velkist was already 100 meters high, dealing with the descending shards. Beams of light fired at him, but not one of them grazed him. He's having far too much fun.
Halcyon clicked his tongue. Is this why Asinus is your natural counter? Silence. Though it lacked the destructive power and defensive capability of the Black Dragon bloodline, it had its own, perhaps even greater abilities. I sighed as I watched Velkist dominate the sky. Whew, looks like I'm not needed after all. Jenna whistled and turned to me. But hey, what did you talk about with that prince guy? I'll tell you later if there's a chance. Jenna tilted her head, puzzled. I chuckled softly and continued watching the sky light up with countless explosions. It was like a fireworks display. Every streak of light was followed by an explosion of flame and radiant flashes. Immovable blade. A perfected technique of the White Dragon, one of the few weapons capable of piercing dragon armor. It was the reason Asinus was considered Halcyon's counter. He's been holding back his strength, too. It was preparation for our battle against Ceres. They were likely watching this mission after all. Revealing our trump cards prematurely wasn't an option. But now, I don't even know what to believe anymore. When we get back what? I'll have to revisit this whole conversation. This world was hiding something far heavier and deeper than I had anticipated. If you want to save the world, come to Server 1. I recalled Alpha Zero and Cecil's words. They weren't wrong, just missing some crucial details. Charge rate, 80%. The constant barrage of messages and chat windows had disappeared. Anything must have ended the broadcast during the mission. Given the flood of complaints and anger about the game, it was probably unbearable. The 80th floor mission was quietly approaching its conclusion. The type was conquest. But what were we supposed to conquer or transcend? Fate, conquest, transcendence, they were just lofty words thrown around without substance. At least offer a realistic alternative. Priya's lips opened. A single word escaped. Brother. But the prince was nowhere to be seen. That's enough. Shortly after, is it already over? Velkist landed on the ground. The remnants of countless crystals rained down like shattered glass. That thing inside the hole still needs finishing off. Velkist pointed downward. A massive, several hundred-meter crystal was beginning to emerge. Crystal of Despair, level 315. It's fine. Priya will handle that. The moment I finished speaking, charge rate, 100%. There was no sound. A golden beam of light erupted from Priya's sword and surged into the sky. The light embraced the entire chasm, gently sealing it shut. Stage clear. No EXP is provided for this mission. Reward, 10 million gold, 13 A-grade, top-grade white irons. Heart of the Empire, red dragons. MVP, Velkist, 6-star. When my eyes opened again, everything was over. As the hole sealed shut, the monsters froze in place and collapsed. Their corpses turned into a black liquid, spreading across the streets and alleyways. Casualties, 693. Roderick's voice returned with the answer. Around 300 survivors. The result wasn't bad. I had anticipated total annihilation. And now, nothing remained. This place could no longer be called a city. It had burned, collapsed, and crumbled beyond recognition. Thud. Priya, still holding her sword, collapsed to the ground. I stood up from my spot and approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. I heard her faint voice. Is it over? The hole is closed. It won't reopen for a while. Make sure you learn to wield that power properly. It'll be invaluable in the battles to come. Priya didn't respond. I sighed lightly and asked, Do you regret it? I do not. That doesn't sound convincing. I'll be fine once I recover. Give me time. I want to be alone. Priya staggered to her feet, and then she began to walk away, heading somewhere unknown. All I could do was watch her leave. It's time. The light of return began to wrap around my body. Before I could say anything more,
I was pulled back to a familiar place, the waiting room of Taunia. The surviving members of the mission stared blankly at one another. When Roderick gave the disband order, they walked off toward their quarters, their steps slow and unsteady, as if their souls had been drained. Hanisrat! Isel flapped her wings excitedly and flew towards me. Ahem! I knew you would win! Now that you've conquered both Niflheimer and Taunia's 80th floors? Let's talk later. Huh? Wait, what? I brushed Isel aside and stepped into the elevator. Once inside my quarters, I shut the door tightly behind me. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I muttered quietly, "We need to talk." A faint white mist gathered in front of me. The mist formed into the shape of a hooded figure, Yernit. So, you were watching me all along. She kept her head lowered, as if she already knew what I had realized during the mission. Why didn't you tell me? I thought you wouldn't believe me. Yernit spoke after a long hesitation. You thought I wouldn't believe you? It's too far drawn from common sense. It is hard to believe. Honestly, it was still difficult to accept even now. The truth felt like something from another world, something impossibly distant. At the very least, I would have tried to understand. This world is far more dangerous and vile than you realize, Master. And I thought it would be better to help you let go of your attachment. To let go of my attachment? I laughed hollowly. So you deliberately acted that way to make me hate you, so that I wouldn't grow attached to this world? That doesn't make sense. Did you ever think that if I learned the truth, I might just return to Earth without any need for all this drama? Yernit lowered her head further. She offered no excuses. What a mess. I'm sorry. Let me ask you one last time. I crossed my arms and spoke. What was the purpose of bringing me here from Earth? It was to replace the aging server computer. There were 5 candidates and 4 failed. You are the last one remaining. By combining you, the Master, with a hero, they aim to create a transcendent. This transcendent would replace the aging main server of Pick Me Up. That is the purpose of the goddess creating the 7 stars, and that is the truth Cirrus revealed to us. Yernit closed her eyes slowly. If you go to Server 1, you will neither live nor die. You'll burn up all your interference power to prolong the lifespan of the universe. Wouldn't it have been better for you to return to Earth without ever realizing this terrible truth? Is there even a way back? Recently, we have located the place where your real body resides. Yernit waved her hand. A transparent hologram appeared in the air. Inside was an unfamiliar scene. A hospital room, a dimly lit room, a white bed, and on that bed lay a man.
Chapter 284. I squinted my eyes open. The quality of the hologram screen was poor. The image stuttered constantly, and coarse static occasionally swept across the middle of the video. Still, I could clearly make out the face of the man lying in the bed. His bones were gaunt. It looked as if his skin was barely hanging on. He lay flat on the bed with a respirator attached. The heart monitor beside him displayed an irregular graph. Even at a glance, he was clearly unconscious. There was no sign he would open his eyes. The face was so different from the one I knew. Only after checking several times could I finally accept it. The young man in that bed was me. Currently, Master's body is isolated in a general hospital. Vital signs are stable. However, you've been in a coma for nearly a year. Still, Master's physical body isn't dead. With a distant look, she stared at the man in the bed. Does that mean I can go back? I have completed the coordinate measurements. The issue is whether your body can withstand the pressure. Dimensional interference will be immense. Most biological data would be completely shattered during the transmission. Speaking of which, Master, Yernit furrowed her brow. You crossed over here with your body intact. That's an impossibility. It's not entirely unprecedented. El Cid was similar. Based on our investigation, El Cid was entirely different. As the prototype of the 7-star project, he lost most of his body and only a fragment of his consciousness crossed into Mobius. The difference with you, who preserved both body and mind perfectly, is vast. Yernit took a short, deep breath and continued her explanation.
After the failure of the 7-star prototype El Cid, the project moved in a different direction. Using heroes who reached the limits of 6 stars as the base, they synthesized only the master's interference power. That's how the second, third, and fourth prototypes were created. However, so I was originally supposed to be fused with Cirrus, but instead, my body crossed over on its own. And to a place completely unrelated to Niflheim? Yurnet rubbed her lips. Then, in a low voice, she said, "Master, that's not really important. We were talking about whether I can return to Earth." "You're right, I deviated from the topic. I apologize." Yurnet gave a brief nod. "Anyway, to cross from Mobius back to Earth, you'll need to withstand immense pressure. Therefore, you'll need a body that can endure it. If this issue can be resolved, we'll be able to open the gate with the interference power we've gathered." 7-star, I muttered softly. If there's anybody capable of withstanding dimensional pressure, that's the only possibility. If there were no method at all, they wouldn't have brought this up with me. Yes, if Master becomes a 7-star, it will be possible. Of course, before that, you must absorb enough interference power from Taunia. I grabbed the glass of water on the table and took a sip. Absorb Taunia's interference power. That means clearing the mission up to the 90th floor. Only after that can I become a 7-star and even start talking about returning home. Gulp. Even after finishing the glass of water in one go, my thirst wasn't quenched. Instead, my insides felt like they were burning. "You must feel regretful." Yurnet lowered her gaze. "But Master, you must return. Don't you have family waiting for you?" "I don't have anything like that." I'm sorry, I didn't mean." I chuckled as I watched Yurnet fluster. "Why are you apologizing? I never told you about it." "Anyway, you're saying there's a way to return." "Yes, if the company intervenes, we will risk our lives to protect you." I let out a deep sigh. Since arriving here, I'd received so much help from them, but I'd never given anything back. Am I just going to keep receiving until the end? "Master, I've deposited money into your account. Use it as living expenses when you return." Yurnet twirled her left hand. Another hologram window popped up. It was a mobile banking account screen. The account holder's name was Han So Jin, my real name on Earth. Shinyu X Bank. Huh. Well, I don't use that bank anymore after switching. I glanced down. 11X, 35X, 2268XX. Balance, 10 billion won. 10 billion won? I thought I had misread it and checked again, but I hadn't. In addition, I've prepared 3 high-rise office tels in Gangnam, Seoul, a Ferrari V8 special model, land slated for new city development, and 10,000 Batcoins. The procedures are complete and everything is already in your name. You can use them as soon as you return. You won't have to worry about living expenses. You gathered all this yourself? Yurnet gave a slight smile and nodded. Hacking, stocks, and speculation are my hobbies. There are so many fools called ants on Earth. Thanks to them, I've had modest success. I have no use for these things, so I'll give them to you, Master. I let out a hollow laugh. That's far from modest success. I had saved up a decent sum doing my 2 broadcasts, but Yurnet's gift was on a completely different scale. With this, I could live extravagantly anywhere forever. Forgetting all this and returning to Earth? What if I don't go back? There's nothing you can do. It was a voice inside me. I was one of the top rankers in this game, and yet just one ranker. Master, please don't be sad. We were happy to be with you. I was left alone in the room. Happy to be with me? I only used you guys as game characters, nothing more than that. I let out a bitter smile. Since falling into this place, every day has been a cycle of pain, but I always believed, one day, I thought I could smile in the end. But Iloka, Edis, El Cid, they all died. If this was the truth, then what meaning was there? Just a pointless death. I looked ahead. A woman with bright orange hair floated before me, wearing a luxurious fur coat and waving a fan. You said you'd save me, didn't you? Her voice was filled with contempt. Are you planning to run away like this? Get lost, I spoke in a low voice. It was just a hallucination, but it felt so real.
Eloka let out a strange laugh. Then her figure twisted and distorted. Her once vibrant skin turned pale, bruise patches surfacing across her face. It was the unmistakable look of a drowned corpse. You promised me. Thud. I swung the scabbard of my sword and struck the space where she stood. The impact sent the scabbard crashing into the wall, and Eloka's solution dispersed into a cloud of mist. It was nothing but a hallucination. Warning: Hero Han, 6-star,
Stress levels are critical. Tip: please manage your hero's stress appropriately. This can prevent sudden, unexplained death or panic. I let out a sharp laugh. They were being awfully direct about it. Gift shop. A screen popped up in front of me. Since clearing the 80th floor, anything hadn't logged out. After all, post-clear maintenance was necessary. But now, she seemed panicked by the sudden alert message. Purchased Warhorse statue. Warhorse statue for 5,000 gold. Warhorse statue for 5,000 gold. Warhorse statue for 5,000 gold. Statues rained down in piles beside my bed, clattering noisily as they stacked up. I stared at them emotionlessly. Han, 6-star, shows no changes. Anything hastily navigated back to the main menu. She seemed to be preparing another approach. She reopened the shop and purchased the high-quality glow stick. Bright flashes of light filled my view as the glow stick waved back and forth in front of me. Han, 6-star, shows no changes. Still nothing. Growing desperate, Anything opened the gift shop again and began purchasing other gifts. Luxury dinnerware, enchanted wheatstones, magical potions, board games, and even another fur coat. But no matter what she sent, nothing changed. It's just a game, I murmured quietly. Back when I first arrived in this world, I promised myself that I wouldn't trust anyone. That was the right answer. If I hadn't gotten attached, I wouldn't be hurting like this. In the end, all that remained was regret. I pulled the scabbard out from where it was embedded in the wall and returned it to my waist. The hallucinations were gone. The room was quiet again, and in the reflection of a nearby mirror, my sunken eyes stared back at me. My gaze was like a stagnant swamp, lifeless and devoid of hope. Elsewhere in the dimensional rift, in a fairy's private chamber, Iselle was furiously flapping her wings while talking into a communication crystal. "So, our Han cleared the 80th floor, okay? Did you see it? The prince went down with one hit. Han is unbeatable. He never loses." "What? You want to join us? Dream on. I'm Han's first subordinate, and I'm not giving up my spot to anyone." Iselle shrieked into the crystal. "Don't even try to get close. This seat is mine. You can just keep bowing down to your silly master over there. They'll quit eventually anyway." Her conversation partner was a fellow fairy, a classmate from fairy school. That fairy had once been paired with a heavy-spending master, but had been stuck on the 70th floor for ages. Now their master barely logged in. "A bug? Who cares? My master doesn't care about those things. He keeps buying packages regularly and doesn't even complain." "What? Anything's a piggy bank? You want to die? Show some respect. I'm one of only 6 fairies across the server who have cleared the 80th floor." With a loud clack, Iselle hung up. She huffed out a breath and flitted back towards her desk. "All right, time to get back to work." On the desk sat a thick, ancient tome, the Book of Reversal, left behind by El Cid. The translation work was nearly complete. Iselle had already extracted everything she could from it. With a small notepad and pen in hand, she carefully approached the book. "Once this job is done, I should toss this thing out. Seriously, it's called the Book of Reversal, but it doesn't even help with 7-star ascension." Sigh. She flipped open the first page. And then a blinding golden light erupted from its pages. "What? Ick!" With a comical yell, Iselle was flung backward, spinning 3.5 times in midair before coming to a halt. She hovered in the air for a moment before darting back towards the book in panic. She flipped through its pages, her tiny hands trembling. But nothing had changed. The book still looked old and worn, just as it had always done. What was that? She muttered, wide-eyed with shock.
Chapter 285. With this, the hurdle of the 80th floor was safely cleared. Both Anything and Taunia had only 10 missions left before the final clear. Normally, this was the point where interference would begin.
That's how it was during Niflheim. As soon as news spread that I had cleared the 80th floor, rankers immediately started pressuring me. But now it was utterly silent. Anything didn't even receive a single note congratulating her for clearing the 80th floor. The reason could be one of two things. Either Cirrus had dealt with all the troublemakers, or most of the rankers had quit due to the dire state of the server. Now I could feel it directly. When I played, Pick Me Up's server was clean, running without a hitch, but now it was in a catastrophic state. Disconnects occurred at least once a day. While anything could simply reconnect without concern, how were other players handling it? If it were just server disconnections, players could bear with it until they reconnected. The real problem was the severe bugs that came with it. Heroes disappearing from inventories, items and skills randomly appearing and vanishing, and even reports of fragments spawning during the 10th floor missions and massacring entire hero parties. There were screenshots as evidence, leaving Mobius with no room to deny it. How much longer can it hold? According to Yearnit, if the server collapsed, every waiting room would descend into chaos in an instant. The goddess functioning as the server was suppressing countless billions of fragments lying dormant within the boundary. However, her suppression wasn't perfect, and fragments exceeding capacity were slowly leaking out. The large-scale operation of handling these fragments seemed to be the essence of Pick Me Up's major event, the World Raid. But even knowing the truth, nothing would change. After some basic preparations, anything continued getting ready to tackle the next floor. Since Niflheim was secretly reinforcing the external defense, it was easier to focus solely on missions. From the 81st floor onward, not many troops were needed. Anything gathered intelligence and sent an elite party to undertake the mission. Floor 81. Mission type: Exploration. Objective: Investigate the designated location. I opened my eyes. The first thing I noticed was the ashen sky. Below it, the ruins of a city stretched out before me. The capital of the empire, Vardia. Parts of it had been destroyed during the 80th floor mission. Apparently, missions were still centered around this location. "It's still a mess," Jenna remarked, shaking her head. Her face bore an expression of weariness. "I thought clearing the 80th floor would change something, but it's all the same. Wasn't the revival of Taunia supposed to happen? So many people died for nothing." "Let's move." Pulling my cloak tighter, I walked along the shattered main road. A few NPCs, who looked like mercenaries, were cleaning up the wreckage of buildings. In the distance, people who appeared to be refugees shuffled down the street. "Brother." A timid voice. I glanced to the side. "I'm hungry. Food, please." A girl who looked no older than 10 stood there, wearing tattered clothes, dirtied with dust and ash, clutching at my sleeve and tugging at it desperately. "If you don't want to die, stop!" Pushing Velkist aside, I rummaged through my belongings. A small piece of jerky came out. Handing it to the girl's dirty hands, I whispered quietly, "Run away as fast as you can." The girl nodded silently before vanishing into an alley. Soon after, dozens of beggars followed in her direction. Velkist scoffed. Pointless. Better than starving to death. I looked around the ruined capital once more. A broken city overflowing with beggars and refugees, the harsh cries and screams of mercenaries, mingled with sobs, occasionally pierced the air. "It's not a pleasant sight. I hope it gets resolved soon," Jenna sighed. We passed mercenaries, beggars, and refugees on our way toward the city center. A command tent for the princess's army was set up atop the ruins of the imperial palace. A guard who recognized us stepped aside to let us through. "How much food is left?" "If we distribute it 3 times a day, it won't last a month." "Reduce it to once a day, half the supply." "But the citizens will revolt." "Tell them to wait a week. We'll secure more food by then." "Understood." A mercenary carrying orders from Yoshua passed us by briskly. Outside the command tent was Yoshua, a burly man with a thick beard wearing leather armor. He turned around with a deeply furrowed brow. His rough voice greeted me. "Young." "He's so uncle-like." Jenna muttered, awkwardly, forcing a laugh. Yoshua's beard extended down to his neck. He burst into a hearty laughter when he saw Jenna. Embarrassing, isn't it? But I haven't had time to shave. Anyway, come in. He pulled back the entrance flap to the command tent. Inside was a bare room, consisting only of a large table with a single map and a few chairs. You're here. The woman seated at the head of the table stood up. The leader of the princess's army, Priya, wore a simple leather outfit, unfitting for her noble status. Take a seat. I slouched into a chair by the table. Jenna and Velkis sat beside me. It's noisy outside, I remarked. We decided to take in refugees. It couldn't be helped. Priya sighed deeply, her eyes fixed on Taunya's ruins. She turned to Jenna. Do you know how many died during the first invasion? Didn't we stop them? There weren't any citizens in the capital then. Some of them escaped the capital. That's why I sent Joshua. I'm sorry. It's my fault for being incompetent. No, there's no need for you to apologize. It's only natural that we couldn't handle it. Priya gave a bitter smile, biting her lip. 30% of the Empire's population died. Just letting 100 or so escape caused tens of millions to perish. It makes sense. Conventional weapons and magic were ineffective against the fragments. Their characteristics were entirely different from those of normal monsters, making them difficult to deal with on a first encounter. The images of burning cities and citizens being massacred uninvoluntarily came to mind. So what's your plan? Priya closed her eyes for a moment before replying. If we had the dimensional sword left by my brother, we could confront them. That's true. It could seal the gaps. For now, the only option is to gather all refugees into one place. If my reach cannot extend to them, I can't save them. Together with the heroes, we will have to protect the capital. I swallowed a bitter laugh. A purely defensive strategy. Closing one gap wouldn't be the end of it. As time passed, more and more gaps would inevitably appear. Han, you seem to know a way to deal with those things. Teach our warriors how to fight them. How many do you have? About 10,000.
10,000? They really expected to repel the fragments with only 10,000? And they weren't even heroes. Ordinary people, without skills, engravings, or enhanced physical abilities. I sighed. Thank you. Priya placed her clasped hands on the table and hesitated before looking at me, Velkist, and Jenna. Is there something else you want to say? The next task might put you in danger. Just spit it out. Stop beating around the bush. Joshua glanced at Velkist with a hostile glare, but Velkist simply chuckled and ignored him. Priya hesitated for a moment, then placed a translucent stone on the table. What's this? Priya tapped the stone with her finger. With a flash, blue light erupted from the stone, illuminating the table. 2 different images materialized above it. Ding! Choices have been presented. You can prioritize one of the 2 objectives. Of course, it was a choice-based mission. I focused on the faintly visible images. Krah! The first image, a small village with a windmill on a hill. What was once a peaceful place was now in chaos. Kill you! Kill you all! Frios! A massive bird, its flesh and bones grotesquely exposed, rampaged wildly. Every flap of its wings scattered black blood in all directions. How dare you lowly humans! How dare you challenge me, ruler of 10,000 demons! Turn off the sound. With a click, the sound disappeared. Schuttenberg. It wasn't dead yet. Well, it was a transcendent species after all. In that case, there was no need to look at the next image. Han. It was Halcyon's voice. He seems to be corrupted. There's no trace of reason left in him. It was clear they weren't in their right minds. Schuttenberg was recklessly releasing massive magical storms. The villagers had long since been wiped out, not even leaving corpses behind. The village itself had been reshaped beyond recognition. But an opportunity is an opportunity. To think they'd appear of their own accord, saving us the trouble of hunting them. Saving us the trouble. Han, have I ever told you about your potential? You are a vessel as excellent as an emperor. You've grown well. Now it's time to devour the next transcendent species. If you absorb the Azure Wing King, you'll gain infinite mana. If you absorb the Crimson Mist King, you'll obtain eyes that transcend reality and illusion. Either way, you'll profit greatly. Alternatively, by dealing with those two, you could acquire the power needed to ascend to 7 stars. I see. Returning to Earth required me to ascend to 7 stars, like it or not. Those two would need to serve as sacrifices for that purpose. No room to refuse, is there? In any case, the mission was up to the Master to decide. If this extermination mission was part of the journey to the 90th floor, there was no choice but to accept it. I twirled my finger. Master, Han 6 Star suggests the Schuttenberg extermination mission. Do you accept? Yes? No. Ding! You have chosen the Schuttenberg extermination mission. The field for the next mission will be automatically adjusted. With this, the procedure was complete. So, these things are blocking access everywhere? Correct. Each of them is stationed at key points leading to the capital. Because of them, refugees are isolated, unable to move. Even our elite troops are struggling to... No need for that. I'll handle it quickly in return. The images on the table disappeared. Joshua bowed his head to me. We're deeply sorry for relying on you every time, but our circumstances... I get it. It's obvious. Jenna, Velkist, head outside. I'll wrap up and follow shortly. Jenna and Velkist left the tent. Joshua glanced between me and Priya before bowing and leaving as well. Silence. Priya remained unchanged. Even after having effectively killed her own brother and learning of a future there was no such thing as victory, she showed no signs of wavering. Are you worried about me? Priya spoke softly. I'll be fine. I've already made my decision. There's no turning back for me. All that's left is to move forward, no matter what awaits at the end. I didn't respond, simply watching her quietly. Han, I know that you come from a different place than Tonia. Earth, it's called. Then a lifetime contract is out of the question. What right do I have to hold someone from another world here? Priya smiled faintly. Forget the promise we made in the past. Do what your mission permits and return to your homeland. Find your own happiness there. Tonia could never be your home. That was my mistake. Priya stood from her chair. Turning her back to me, she headed toward the exit. I'm sorry. Her voice trembled slightly, almost inaudible as she whispered those words while passing me. Home. Huh. I closed my eyes.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.